So then we are back with the modern understandings from the time of the Second Tabernacle services, a refined in the Aramaic English translation of the word. This translation comes from the original manuscripts of the prophets of the Israelic lineage. So then we can understand the time of the end. As per Yeshayahu the prophet, we find ourselves then understanding the spring feast, autumn feast, and the returning of the cities of the Messiah laid waste for many centuries. And then obviously, Yeshayahu the 61st chapter gives us this precise understanding. However, let's try then understand 1 Thessalonians, where then in the 4th chapter you find then those who are going to be raptured. There are many controversies related with this section because people try to understand the scripture as on flat surfaces because they were given the wrong scripture. The Greco and the Romans, when they were translating the holy instructions, they did not understand the times and the seasons from Leviticus the 23rd chapter. So let's try to understand then, so we can then be more acquainted with the movements of countries and the changings of governments, and most importantly, then the future rapture of the people. Let's make this very clear. What is coming in the future and the consummation of the age is then obviously the autumn feast. Is the second half of the Torah, second half of the prophets. So then, this means whatsoever you read on Revelation, you must understand only the sounding of the shofars and the pouring of the cups are related with the autumn feast. The rest of it does not belong with the autumn feast's writings as we know of. So then, we find the first, second, and third chapters of Revelation. Obviously, those are related with the time of Yohanan. Let's understand why. Because those were the cities already in existence when then Yohanan gathered the documents of the time of transition, and then he sent those to those 7 cities and straightened them out. So then the Gentiles had a place of reference. Thus then the Messiah started his kingship as per the instructions related with the holy cities. So then, with this in mind, let's try to understand then what it means, rapture. The rapture, there is a very precise understanding from the original Hebrews. You have then the understanding of the Gentiles, and you have understanding also of the Hebrews. We understand the objective of the Gentile or Gentiles, then we find ourselves understanding service. The Gentiles are then explained where then Yeshayahu the prophet mentioned, chapter 1:8, related with the first holy city on the land of Cush, per the instructions of the prophet, where then the holy instructions, times and seasons would be then restarted. Then there is a section in the 61st chapter, and those are related, 1:8 with 61st, related with the Gentiles servicing the land. These meant tabernacling would have to have Gentiles testifying on behalf of the Messiah. The holy people, the true Hebrews, then separated by the Messiah himself, those would function in the holy cities. So salvation then works in such a way. Those from the cities are obviously saved from the cities. Gentiles, while they are obviously making testimony on behalf of the Messiah, when they die, they are saved. So what is the condition of it? Is there going to be a coming from the dead in this age? This understanding comes from Ezekiel the 37th chapter, where then the prophet had an understanding regarding then the dry bones in a mountain, or amongst the mountains, or then in the trough of a mountain. What then the Creator was trying to explain while Ezekiel was in exile? He was explaining of a time where then the people would be coming from the dead when speaking of tabernacling. This age, people will no longer come from the dead for the purposes of the ending of the time. So let's try to make this extremely clear. When you die, your flesh then obviously rots and returns to the earth, as Ecclesiastes has in fact mentioned. Your soul, then there are a couple of options. If you died in the Messiah, if you are obedient to what the Messiah has said, in your capacity of service person, if you are a Gentile, or if you die as a functional Hebrew in the holy cities, your soul is going to rest. You have a body, you have a soul, and if you are saved in the Messiah, you have a spirit reborn. The link lost with Adam and Eve is then obviously restored. So then, if you die without the Messiah, your soul goes to torment. You never had a reborn spirit, but an evil and demonic spirit linking up your soul with it. So then, understandably, when Shaliach Shaul mentioned, he said in the 11th verse of the 4th chapter, "And that you strive to be quiet and to do your own works, and that you labor with your own hands as we directed you, and that you walk becomingly towards those without, and that you be dependent on no man." What he's explaining is this. Back then, during the time of Shaliach Shaul, there were many Hebrews lying and testifying on their own behalf to get money from. Shaliach Shaul mentioned, do your work quietly, and then make sure, do then and produce fruit. And that you walk becoming towards those without, and that you are depending on no man. Teaching other people. And Shaliach Shaul then said, my brothers, that you should not mourn over them who have then gone to rest. What is he explaining? Those people who died in the Messiah, their souls are resting. But they should not be sad because of it. Because those souls are stored safely, resting in the Messiah. Those people who do not want to do anything with the Messiah, those people who want to live their lives as they please, those souls, when they die, they go to a chamber of torment known as the Inferno. Their souls remain in there, known as the first death. The Messiah also spoke in Revelation of the second death. The second death is when the earth then burns because of the shout of sulfur. Explained very clearly then in Luke chapter 1:7. So these are linked. So let's understand the rest of it. For if we believe that the Messiah died and rose again, the Messiah spent 72 hours in the Inferno. He did experience the torment of Inferno, but then he came back. Like other people who have no hope, those who are in the world. For if we believe that the Messiah died and rose again, even so those who are going to be resting with the Messiah because of their belief in Him, then Elohim, plural name of God, via Yeshua, wilt raise him again. When is he going to raise them again? Is when the new earth becomes available. A person is not going to come from the dust in this age as the first step. Second is related with Mitzvah the 24th chapter. Then the disciples came and they brought him on the top of the Mount of Olives, and they were asking what is going to be like it at the end. Then the Messiah explained. Did the Messiah mention regarding people coming from the dead? No, because they are not coming to the dead, and they are not coming from the dead. There is no link with people coming from the dead when he spoke with them regarding the time of the end. Because the question of the disciples was then regarding with the restoration of the kingdom, not the rapture. Shaliach Shaul has the primary objective explaining of the rapture. The Messiah answered the question regarding the restoration of the kingdom. So then, in these we say to you by the word of the Messiah, that we who may survive and be alive at the coming of the Messiah won't precede them who have slept. What does it mean? Layers of understanding, step-by-step formation. Firstly then, no person, no souls are returning from this age. Our flesh is contaminated with sin. It deteriorates. But no person is coming from the dead during this age. Only those then later when the earth is reformed or refurbished. Then, much later, then those who went to rest with the Messiah first will be coming first, raising themselves from the resting places of where their souls were at resting. Then the Creator will give them a glorified body. Then your soul is put back where it belongs, and then the earth is refurbished. So then, when the people are thinking of coming from this earth, when the Messiah returns, is nonsense. Absolutely nonsense. Because the understanding is this: this earth must be destroyed. There is no refurbishment of this earth for the purposes of maintaining its systems. This earth must be destroyed. That's why then Shimon, the Shaliach, mentioned, and then the elements of the earth will burn with a fervent heat. He's explaining then the shout of sulfur that's coming at the very end. But then we must understand the next step. The Gentiles, they won't ever watch the Messiah returning. And there is a reason why. 60th chapter of Revelation gives you then those people who are making testimony on behalf of the Messiah. Those died in the 60th chapter. Those are the Gentiles. Because shortly after you find then the autumn feast then started. Then Nahashatan changes his facet from precision, dragon, to destroyer. Those Gentiles making testimony on behalf of the Messiah outside of the holy cities are the primary target. So when you read Revelation, the 60th chapter, and those who were then making testimony for the Messiah were then eliminated, remaining only the holy cities and the people of the world outside, and then later making war against the holy cities. Then it starts the 490 days of the autumn feast. If you have half of the instructions, half of the Torah, half of the prophets, 490 days precisely, what do you think the other half would be? 490 days of autumn feast. because only half was completed. The other half is then 490 days. But then the interesting section of it is related with then the understanding of Gentiles won't ever observe the Messiah returning. Shaliach Shaul is mentioning of himself and his own people, and we the Hebrews who are alive in the holy cities, because Shaliach Shaul was explaining yet during the time of the transition from the first and second tabernacle services. Obviously later, when the completion of this transition was done via Yahanan, the first holy city, then those people who are stored and protected in the holy cities will observe the Messiah returning. But the Gentiles are gone in the 6th chapter. Their souls are going to rest. So then, because the Messiah will to himself descend from heaven with a mandate and with the voice of the chief angel, and then the Karna of Elohim, and the dead who are the Messiah will first arise. This section is mixed up. The translator translated wrongly. Firstly, then, the Messiah comes and he destroys the statue. He must be in line with Daniel. Daniel, the 12th chapter. Comes the rock from heaven and destroys the entire kingship of the Gentiles. But then later, then, obviously the earth is refurbished, and then the people will be coming from the dead. Then those who went to rest with the Messiah first will come out first. It's very simple. And then he who survives and are alive will to be caught up together with him in the clouds. This is prior of the shower of sulfur, when then the second death is then very near. Then you find then the final understanding is then when the Messiah said, and the first death, in Revelation, he said very plainly, then there was those souls over there in torment. They're going to be watching very closely, and then the records are going to be shown again to make sure no person in the soul form is then judged unjustly. Then those people in torment are going to be thrown in this earth while burning. That's the second death. Then the earth is devastated. Then the Creator must do His work of refurbishing the earth as He started out as. Then comes the meal. Moshe had a meal with the Creator on the top of the mountain. So the Messiah must have a meal with his people when the earth is refurbished. So this explains then roughly, there are more details, such as then Ezekiel the 40th chapter, there won't be a third temple. The Hebrew people, they won't have a third temple on the mountain. Only the tabernacling of the desert, then the Ishmaelites will let when the time comes. There won't be a third temple. What they saw, for instance, in Ezekiel the 40th chapter, are the measurements of the new tabernacling, where then the Creator Himself lives, is His capital. And the rest of us, we're going to get busy, get to work. So then, these give us at least a starting point of then separating what is flat surface and trying to justify people coming out of the dead during this age. Makes no sense. But then we do find there is a layer related with this age, and the other layer then later when then the earth is refurbished. So please stay tuned. Much more coming up.